Okay, welcome to our part 3 video working through our AGADAP walkthrough. In part 1, I went through steps 1 through 5, how we do some AGADAP planning and analysis and putting that all together. Part 2, we looked at how to draw the COA sketch, right? And now we're going to go through the concept statement and how that gets written.
We've got our concept sketch done, and now we have to look at how to do our statement. Now remember that this is just sort of like a Mad Lib, so we've got all these fill in the blanks that we have to do. All right, so first one, the purpose of this operation is. Okay, so if we go back to the order that our company commander gave us, that gave us a task and purpose. That's the purpose that goes here. It's the same purpose from the company commander. It's the same purpose that we wrote into our mission statement. So our purpose is to allow freedom of maneuver for 166 armor to move through the gap. All right, that's it. Decisive to this operation. Okay, so we're going to back up and go look at some of the work we did earlier in AGADAP when we were generating our options and deciding on our course of action. And we had to think about our decisive point back then. We said the decisive point was when the breach lane is open. All right, so we just fill that in here. Breach lane open. Okay, that's it. But make sure that that kind of ties in with anything else you've said about what your decisive point is. All right, now why is this decisive? Well, we thought about that back here too. And remember that our justification has to be, why is this decisive point going to lead us to mission success, right? So in this case, we've got something like, then we can push forces through. We can repurpose if needed. And achieve our purpose. Okay? So we could pull troops in from other tasks and retask them to do this if we have to. Okay? Once we get that breach in. So we're going to copy that down here. All right, we will accomplish this conducting. Again, we go back and look at what we decided to do during generate options, and the course action we chose was this penetration. All right, so that's all we write in here is penetration. Penetration. Okay, make sure that this is some kind of form of maneuver. All right, don't write something else in here, and don't just say we're going to conduct an attack. All right, what form of maneuver of attack are you going to do? In this case, it's a penetration. Are you going to do an envelopment? Are you going to do a turning movement? Are you going to do a flank attack? All right, that's what you put in here. Don't make something else up. Make sure it's one of the forms of maneuver. And we learned what those were for an attack. Doctrine gives us some other forms of maneuver for other types of missions if you ever do them. All right, so that takes us down here when we're looking at our tasks and purposes to our subordinate units. All right, and for that, we're going to come back again to what our options were when we talked about what kind of tasks and purposes that we had for everybody. Okay, so task for the decisive operation is breach, and their purpose is to allow freedom of maneuver for friendly units, 166 armor, to move through the gap. Okay? Now, your decisive operation, remember, their purpose should match your platoon purpose, which was the one given to you from your company commander, right? That's what makes them the decisive op, is that they're the ones going to achieve your purpose for you. Okay, so make sure that ties in. Now we keep going through. So shaping operation 1 was our fixing force, and their fixing, their purpose to prevent the enemy screen force from interfering with the DO. All right. Shaping operation 2, we said was a suppress operation over here. All right. Their purpose to prevent the enemy north of the breach from interfering with the DO. All right, and then shaping operation 3 we said was a task of destroy. Okay, and again, this is to prevent the enemy AT team from interfering with the DO. All right, and we could add that, or other friendly forces, that 166 armor. That's why we're trying to destroy them, right? Because we want to think about that. Okay, so we've got all those here. We've given them all their tasks and purposes, which we already thought about as we went through AGADAP. And now we have to look back, right? And as we went through that, so we came out, here's our different forces, how we arrayed them, and then we had to assign leadership. So that's going to help tell us who gets each of these tasks, right? So our decisive operation, we know, is first squad. We know that our fixing force is going to be second squad. We know that our suppressing force is our weapons squad, or fourth squad. And we know that our destroy force is third squad. All right, so we can make sure that that gets captured there. All right, that brings us up next to our purpose of enablers by Warfighter Function. All right, now we can think through all 6 Warfighter functions. We don't have to capture all 6 here on the page. I like to start with fires for a tactical operation like this. So how am I going to use indirect fire? What can they do to aid me? All right, so I can look at my map and think about, all right, I'm coming in here. I'm going to have somebody trying to destroy this force. I'm going to be sending somebody up to suppress this. I'm trying to fix this over here. How can I use indirect fire most effectively? Now, if I'm only sending third squad up against this anti-tank team, I want to destroy them, though. Now, they probably got a pretty good chance. It's a 2 fire teams against 1 fire team kind of thing. But I think my first purpose of fires, right, should be to help those guys out. All right, so I want them to suppress the enemy AT team in support of third squad. All right, so if they can suppress them, that makes it easier for third squad to come in on the ground and complete the destruction. All right, now I can expand that a little bit if I wanted to, and talk about how, because that's a task, right? We can give them a little bit more of a purpose, in order to assure destruction, right? Facilitate their freedom maneuver, however we want to word that. Now, the other task that I can think about for them is that I also, or if we complete the destruction of the AT team, I want my fires to suppress the enemy north of the minefield in support of, and that's my suppressing squad. So that's weapon squad's job. Okay. So we go ahead and use fires to prep this to assure that third squad can destroy them, and then we can transition. A secondary thing is suppressing this force on the north side and make sure that they get suppressed. All right. That's how I want to use my fires. Now this is enablers, right? So what enablers do I have? Well, if I come back and look at my force structure, I've got an attached engineer unit, and that's an enabler. Now make sure you don't fall into the trap of thinking engineers protection, right? Our engineers aren't doing anything to dig us in or lay wire fences for us or anything protection related. They're conducting a breach, and that is a movement and maneuver function. All right, that's a movement and maneuver warfighting function. All right, so my attached engineers, all right, their purpose is to reduce UCE the minefield. Okay, all right, in support of first squad. Okay, so my attached engineers are a movement and maneuver warfighting function. Make sure you give descriptions that match up with the actual warfighting function. All right, now I've probably got one more. So if I'm looking at this, I've got enemy over here that are screening somewhere on this southern flank here. And I'm going to send a squad in there to find them and try and fix them. They need to know where they are. So I think my intel warfighting function can help me out there. Now, we didn't give a full enough scenario to know exactly what's attached to us, who do we have support, but at least I can always send something up to higher to the S2 shop and request intel to feed that up and try and get information back down. But what I really need them is to find and locate the enemy screen force. All right, I need to know where they are in order for that fixing force to go out and do their job. So I need intel warfighting function to try and find them and let me know where they're at. All right, so that kind of takes care of our enablers by warfighting function. I've got 2 or 3 of them for this class. At least let me know that you're thinking about them. All right, and you won't always have every warfighting function because you don't always have enablers there. But that's a good way to start for these kind of missions. Looking at our fires, our intel, and what can we do with movement and maneuver. From the defense, protection becomes really important. And we can always think about supply things, right? How are we going to handle our resupply missions? All right, now, last thing we got to do is think about our end state. All right, we come down to that. And we break that down into our enemy-friendly terrain and civilian. Now, how can we think about what goes in there? We can look back to what we did earlier in AGADAP. All right. So if you notice a theme here, we went through the first 5 steps of AGADAP where we did all the thinking and analysis and came up with ideas. The last step of producing this sketch and statement is just capturing all that to communicate it. All right. So end state, we can go to what did we want to end with phase 5 and what were the key tasks that have to happen in the end, right? So that gives us some information to go in here. So our friendlies, right, we want everybody back at the assembly area. Okay, so we can start with, all right, all packs accounted for. All right. And the platoon is in the assembly area. All right. Now we can look at what's going on with our purpose. All right. And our purpose is all related to a friendly unit, right? So we have to have at the end, we got to get 166 armor through this. So that's part of our end state is that 166 armor is passed through. Okay. So that's kind of what I see friendly wise. Now we can think about terrain, right? I need this breach to be open. Okay. So, but I don't just want it open, right? I want the breach open. I want it marked properly. And as an end state, I want it handed off to 166 armor. All right, so that they have control of it and can move forward with their mission. Okay, so that's part of all this. All those things have to happen, not just opening the breach. Civilians, a good way to kind of start is we always want minimum civilian casualties. All right, we're not out to cause more than we need to. And then I might say no damage to key infrastructures. All right, we can't be unrealistic and say something like absolutely no damage to anything civilian, right? There might be some house out there, a shed, a farm, whatever. Things happen and stuff might get damaged. If we damage a home, okay, we'll deal with that. But we can't do something like take out a transmission power line that cuts power to an entire city somewhere in an adjacent sector, right? We can't disrupt sanitation by completely making a sewage treatment plant non-functional or a water treatment plant, all right? Because that's going to have serious consequences. So we really don't want to make sure that we don't damage any key infrastructure. Now, I kind of left it for last discussion on the enemy. I got to think about what does the enemy look like when this is all done. All right, I got to think about this mission here, and I look at my purpose, right? So my task is just to get the breach open, but I got to make sure this 166 armor gets through. And really, what I would like to see as platoon leader is that the enemy is unable to interfere with 166 armor in the breach lane. Okay, now if you think about that kind of sounds like a neutralize mission, right? But my mission isn't to neutralize them, but I'm looking at my purpose and I realize that at least in the breach lane, right? I can't let them get interfered with, right? I got to get that 166 armor through, so I got to make sure the enemy doesn't interfere with that happening, or else I'm not going to succeed. That's part of my end state. Now, they don't have to be entirely destroyed because my other friendly units can take care of mop up or things like that once they're through the breach. Yeah. Now, some caveats or things to watch out for. Don't get too grandiose, right? One thing I've seen some cadets try and say is that enemy 100% killed, right? Be careful with that because some of your soldiers are going to take that literal. It was what the order was that you gave them. And if you think about it, so we don't want to be in phase 5 with a bunch of EPW zip cuffed and Private Snuffy goes down the line and executes them all. Why? Well, because your order said the end state was 100% dead. All right, we don't want 100% dead. We might say all enemy killed or captured, but that usually is something that goes along with, you got to tie it back to your mission, a destruction mission, right? In a destruction mission, you might want 100% killed or captured, so then they can't do anything. But if your mission is to clear the objective, right? If that's your tactical task, you don't need to kill any of them, right? You just need them off the objective, right? So then your enemy end state is no enemy present on the objective, right? Whether or not they're still alive is immaterial, right? You just don't want them on the objective. So make sure that your end states tie back in with what your task is that you're actually trying to do and your purpose, right? So here I've got something that ties in with the purpose. All right, and that kind of lays it all out, okay? And then we're complete. We've got our COA sketch, we've got our COA statement, we've filled it all out, all the information is there. Make sure all this information is consistent with the earlier things you did, and it all just is fill in the blanks from what we did in the earlier steps of AGADAP, except maybe the end state has a little bit of thinking for us. Purpose for enablers, maybe a little bit of thinking if we didn't think that through earlier. Okay, now grade-wise, how did I do on this? I think this is a pretty good COA sketch. All right, that's what everything that we're looking for. The only terrain on here is kind of key to showing the fact that there's a gap here, and we've got no unit symbols. We've got all of our tactical tasks. We've shown our broad movements around here. All right, on my COA statement, my one critique of this is maybe, B work, might be B minus C work, I don't know, but this isn't A work. And my problem is this decisive point being the breach. Now, that's something we decided earlier, but, my mission is to breach, so that might be a little late. And if I think about it, maybe a better answer would have been to say, hey, once I get these two elements suppressed, right, suppressing the elements on the north and south. Now, my task is to destroy them, but once they're suppressed before their destruction, that'll allow the breach element to do their job. So that's the minimum I have to do. But once I get those two suppressed, and I could add in if this is fixed over here, my breach element will be able to do their job and get the breach open. So that's taking it a step back. That would be probably a better answer. That would be the A answer. Now, the way, though, to think about that, too, is my mission is the complete breach, pass through these, and when I talked about marking and everything. So I could be a little clearer that all I need to do is once I get the breach lane present and I've got a friendly team on the other side, because that still leaves more mission after that, right? If I'm clear that that doesn't include marking the lane, getting the rest of my forces through, passing through 166 armor, there's a lot that happens after that. So I could be a little clearer on where exactly I'm saying the decisive point is, which is the one thing that I forgot on the COA state sketch. I've got to show where I think my decisive point is with a star, right? So I said it was the breach, so I want to be consistent. But if I want to come back to the suppressions, I could put those stars in there. All right, so now I've got a complete answer, and that's how we came up with that.
All right, so that ends our three-part series here, walking through how we use AGADAP to do some planning and do our course of action development, and then how we create our sketch, how we create our concept statement, and then I talked through a little bit of how to grade that and some of the things that weren't the best about what we put together here and how it could have been even better. All right, have a great day.